Hey guys, what's going on? This is Shane Green. We're going to be talking about bar chords today, ways to make them easier to play. We're going to be looking at one shape in particular, the shape off the fifth string where you're playing a major bar chord. Some people play it like this. That can be harder to play when you're in the upper register because the frets get smaller. So instead of using a finger per string like that, what a lot of people do is use the third finger to play across 4, 3, and 2, those strings. So you can do that down here, you can do it here. The problem is sometimes it's hard to get some of these notes to ring clearly if you're using one finger. That's what bar chords are about. So when you're doing this, let's talk about some things you can do. Number one, change the angle of your finger. The finger that is being used to play more than one string, you can simply change the angle. You can rotate it or change the angle this way or that way. You can go towards the headstock with the base of your finger or away from the headstock with the base of your finger. Sometimes one way helps more than another. You'll find that actually, if I go this way, for me, it actually makes it harder. If I go this way a little bit, it kind of helps. I can do it without doing either way, but when you're first learning these, you have to experiment and find just the right angle to do these. Another thing you can do is move up and down, however you want to look at it. You move close, move your move the finger that's playing more than one string closer to the bass strings or farther away from the bass strings, or towards the bass strings or towards the high strings. So if you're doing this, third finger, and I can't get it, I'm going to move a little bit towards this bass side of the neck. So I'm going to move over a little bit. Angle feels a little different. And just experiment, go back and forth towards the bass strings, towards the high strings, moving your finger over the strings, placing it down, applying pressure. You'll find that sweet spot. These little crevices in your knuckles sometimes get stuck right on top of a string. Like if this is the string, I'm going to use a pick for an example. If this is the string and it's covering right over that indentation in my knuckle, that little valley there, it's going to be hard to play that note and get it to ring out. So sometimes you have to move it over that little ridge to find that sweet spot. Another thing you can do is change the pressure on the joint itself. You can lift up. It's not much, but I can hyperextend this knuckle a little bit back like that without hurting. You may or may not be able to do that. I think it's something that most people could develop with a little bit of slow and steady practice over time, and just working that joint back just a little bit. But just practicing these bar chords will help you to do that. So when you're playing these, put more pressure on this knuckle, and try to elevate this knuckle. So I'm bringing this knuckle up, and by doing that, it's automatically putting more pressure at that knuckle, the knuckle the farthest from the base of my hand. So as you're going out your finger, raise the middle knuckle up, and the knuckle towards the end of your finger is going to be applying more pressure naturally. And that also helps you to get out of the way of that first string, so you're not doing this, making a 6 chord. You can lift up, and that'll help you to mute that first string and put more pressure on that second string. So just try to lift that knuckle up while keeping this knuckle pressed down, and even pressing down harder into it. That's another thing you can do. Another thing you can do from behind the neck is just, my thumb bends back quite a bit. Your thumb may or may not do that, but it doesn't matter. You can do it either way. You can use the thumb across the back of the neck to really squeeze, whether you're bending it like this, or whether it's straight. You can use your thumb to vise the back of the neck and help squeeze. If you're just putting pressure, if you're just flexing your fingers, it's one thing. If you're flexing them and basing your thumb against something else on the opposite side, like a guitar neck, for example, it's a lot easier to get pressure applied to the notes. You're using the leverage of your thumb against the back of the neck, so it makes it a lot easier. So really practice squeezing your thumb and your fingers together into the neck. Try to squeeze the neck into, squeeze your fingers into one another, into the neck, and that'll help you. The last thing I'm going to talk about doing, you can flex your wrist more than usual. And you can experiment. You don't want it overly flexed. You don't want to hyperflex it. And you don't want to, it's going to be hard to play it if it's not flexed at all, depending on the angle you're sitting. I'm sitting, the guitar sitting on my left leg. If you're sitting here, it'll probably be flexed even more so. But you could do it either way. Just experiment with flexing your wrist. The more, once I start flexing and moving down, I have the leverage to use my fingers to get over the strings more as a bass. So, and the less my fingers are flexed, I just don't have that angle. It's harder, and then it's harder to play the first string. So, just experiment flexing your flexing your wrist, moving your fingers back and forth towards the bass strings and towards the treble strings, and changing the angle at which you're pressing down on the fretboard. Angle this way, towards to where the base of the finger is going towards the neck, or headstock rather, and then the base of the finger is going away from the headstock. Those 4 things, and flex your wrist, and do all those things, and experiment with it, and just practice. More than anything, just practice these, work at it, you'll get it. Bar chords are hard, but you'll get them down. They just take a lot of practice, and then practice them. Another thing you can do is practice the bar chords maybe higher on the fretboard. If you practice them right on the first fret, there's a lot of pressure because you're playing right off the nut and you have to squeeze down really hard. So maybe practice them around the 5th fret or the 7th fret, depending on how your guitar's set up. You can play them. You can play them where they're easiest to play on your neck. So just experiment, move around, find the frets that feel lower to the neck, feel lower to the fretboard with lower action, and then practice them in that zone, in that spot off that fret. And when it gets easier, you can play all the notes clearly. Just move down, move up to where you can eventually do it on all strings, or all frets rather. And you can also have the action on your guitar lowered as well, and you can have someone do that who does that. You can take it to a guitar professional, or if you know how to do it yourself, it's another topic. But you can lower the action on your guitar. But really, I think you're gonna have more benefit if you just work to be able to do it with a guitar without super low action. Just medium action or even higher action. Once you can do that, then playing a guitar with lower action is super easy. So just work at it, you'll get them. Just work at those bar chords, and let me know if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions for practicing bar chords. Post them below, subscribe, comment, like. That would be great. Thanks, guys. Hope this helps, and take care.